गर्जना से भस्म हुए धूर्त सब, धड़ से होगा सर अलग, टुकड़े होंगे आतड़ियों के, हरी हुए उग्र बेहरी हुए रुद्र। छिड़ गया है जंग एक ठनी, अस्त्र शस्त्र दंत नख है भौं अब तनी, चल पड़े तो मर गए जितने भी असुर थे यहाँ, बह रही धरा पे लाल रक्त की नदी 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 नदी। नवः रुद्र रूपम नवः रुद्र रूपम नवः रुद्र रूपम नवः रुद्र रूपम, जय 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 नरसिंह जय।
श्रीनरसिंहकवचं ध्यायेत् लक्ष्मीपतिं नारसिंहं विभूतिम् सिंहासनस्थं सुरसिद्धसंसिद्धिं सिंहमुखं दैत्यनिशाचरान्तकम् भक्तानां भयाहरं त्रिभुवननाथम् ॐ श्रीनरसिंह उज्ज्वलितज्वालदेत्यः रक्षतु मां सर्वतः सर्वदैव पूर्वे प्रहरादवल्लभा शूरो जेति दक्षिणे भक्तप्रवरं मदपोटु पश्चिमे चतुर्भुज करवालधारी उत्तरस्यां वै नमः करुणाकराय ऊर्गवीरण्यकशिपुं हतवान् प्रभो अधो न सिंहे सततं मम रक्षतु शिरो मे सिंहाय विकटाय पातु ललाट रत्नवाल्यभूषणः नेत्रे श्वेतज्वालधारी महावीरः श्रवणे सिंहनादो मम रक्षतु न सम्पातु हिरण्यसमर्दकाय वदनं नारसिंह सदा मङ्गलाय जिह्वां योगानन्दकथेतदंष्टरा कण्ठे पातु प्रह्लादानन्ददातार भुजौ चक्रधीरः खड्गविशालधारी वक्षः पातु महालक्ष्मीपति नाभिं च पातु नरः सदैव कटिं मे करुणासिन्धुः समर्थः जङ्घे पातु महावीरवेषः गुल्फो पातु विश्वरूपधारी पादोस्किराय श्रीनरसिंहदेवः शरणागतं मे पातु हरिरनन्दः सर्वरोगाणां शमयतु श्रीनरसिंह दुःस्वप्नदारिद्र्यमपि हरतु दुःखं मोहं विघ्नं विहरतु मे सदा भक्त्या श्रीनरसिंहं भजे फलश्रुते श्रीनरसिंहकवचं
Okay.
सततं भक्तियुक्तो नरः सर्वदा
Hello. Do-do-do. So, 7.4. It was 7.7. But now it's 7.4, the same as the force shock to the 8.8. That's interesting. Not to say an 8.8, but let's talk about it. I pulled up a bunch of Kamchakra I've been thinking about. Trying to look through the data at Kamchakra and like put together a compilation. Maybe this episode will be a bit of that. I also a previous episode was Kamchakra because of the chakra shape there that happened. So it's worth noting let's see, I'll assume you don't know me, so that's a tough sell, but I have mapped the process of the global flood in detail, and shown that the Earth expanded by the global flood, which does not date to recently, but to pretty much the Precambrian. The process, I don't know exactly which years of that time period were the literal flood. It seems to be a process that extends beyond the boundaries of that. But ultimately, undercurrents occurred when ancient Dwarka was attacked by a vortex weapon, blanketing the region with billowing dust. And creating a vortex that punctured the mantle and caused the Earth to expand. Okay, glad we're on the same page now. And one of the aspects is undercurrents. And I thought it was worth sharing this post that I had recently before going through Kamchakra. I'm gonna say Kamchakra, like I gotta just say Kamchakra. I just call it Kamchakra from now on. What do you mean it's not Kamchakra? You think I don't know how to say it? Kamchakra. I'm calling it Kamchakra now. What? Renamed. Boom. Okay. No, sorry, Kamchakra. But just of note, there is evidence of tide-related earthquakes. It's a little odd, considering tide is above the crust. I thought it was of interest because, well, if undercurrents exist, they're probably also experiencing tide-related effects. And there we go, seeing actual evidence of a tide-related effect. I mean, it's assumed to be a tide, like the water, and not assumed or considered, perhaps. It doesn't seem to have been considered that it was a undercurrent tide-related earthquake. Okay, so anyway. We got undercurrents, they're flowing in places that are specifically mapped in the magnetic anomalies, because that's what they are, is the product of the global flood, where blue, low intensity, low intensity is regions current flowed, super flowed, regions current compacted, super compacted. Kamchakra just happens to be, this is where the 8.8 was, right here, right at the edge of this mass of magnetic anomaly. Spike of magnetic anomaly. I mean, there certainly are other spikes, but curiously, it's the only one in its general vicinity. I wonder if it's anomalous in just the entire boundary of the Pacific. I haven't really looked. Nothing there. It seems more continental. Where those are. Those spikes, like there's some here. Where it's just it's higher magnetic intensity. But there's one here, this is where the earthquake was, and then today's, I don't think it was there, but it's very close. Super close. That one was like here. 53.1, 160.3, 53.1, 160.3. There we go. Right in there. So the opposite side. Interesting. Out there. The 8.8 was actually like here, not even in the low. Where this one's in the low, albeit just adjacent, which is very common. Seems to be I have seen times it doesn't happen, so I don't want to say it's like what causes it, but where effectively undercurrents run into resistance and earthquakes happen because they have nowhere to go and start to just kind of shove into resistance to a point where they actually move it. This hasn't been like re-imaged since the 8.8. It's possible it changed. I'm kind of curious. That would be a strong evidence that plate tectonics is false. Really? Well, yeah, the earthquake changed magnetic anomalies in a substantial way. Anyway, so let's check out some stuff because I've not really looked at this in a while, but I found a lot of patterns along the way. So let's go through them. This is when it happened, the first one. So let's just kind of see. I said these quakes are transitioning further south along the margin, and this 8.7 seems to have led into one much further south down the margin. Sorry, probably like super loud. Anyway. Okay. Oddly, I thought it seemed like it was opening a pathway along the margin, and was figuring another could happen further along the margin. So here's one. I was just thinking like there's resistance, some reason. I don't know if I was thinking specifically resistance, but just the quake moved things down the margin, and then this one happened. Here is the early ones. Okay, so, and then there's the 8.7 at the time. So the foreshocks were in the area. Interesting. Whoa, they're like right where this one is. That was fucking crazy. Felt like it's the music and my like freaking hearing. Oh my god. That's super close. I didn't realize how close it was. It's like pointed at by that, and then kind of where this extends outward. So it's a little up, but so are these a bit. Like the higher one, so maybe it's a little further this way. $52.83, 160.68. here versus here. And then the 7.4 was opposite to the 8.8, which was here. Let's find it again since we can look at it. 52.5, 160.26. Oh, it's like here. There we go. Oh. Like just adjacent to it. I guess kind of adjacent to this region and not as much on this as like right at it where it goes up. Opposite to this, so who knows if this magnetic anomaly is still in the same nature. And then 7.4 there, and now we have another one there. Maybe it shifted material this way even. Like an 8.8 here, maybe it shifted it like into pressure though, like along the pressure to literally like move this over so that like an 8.8 could happen here in the sequence. I don't know. I don't want to say another 8.8 is gonna happen. Just oh well. Just like contemplating possibilities. Okay, but so it moved, and then this one happened down here where I was thinking like because it moved, like they were all up here and then they moved down here into this region, and then I was thinking well maybe they could move further because it's an undercurrent that's like breaking through resistance that the 8.8 essentially enabled a flow to go through some resistance in some manner so that like turbulence and building up pressure could break through like a dam. Where essentially inside the earth there's like cavities that contain undercurrents and pressure that then act like a lung kind of thing that like talk to one another and send energies between all of them that then creates like undercurrents because they're like chambers that have an above layer of the crust and an under layer, so it's flowing within ranges, not just one range but throughout, but like channels like a cave system kind of thing. That's a network in which undercurrents flow that is mapped, especially in magnetic anomalies. Okay, so let's keep going because I just thought that I'd like check out these posts, go through them, see, bring any like interesting things back to my mind, to this discussion, if anyone cares what I have to say ever. Thanks guys that are there. So there it is there. Then I was noticing that it's generally along a margin here that wraps in but continues. Kind of relating it to that undercurrent propagating idea. And then there's like a gap here that if we just go over here and take this boundary and just kind of, and a boundary kind of here, and just kind of dot it, it generally points there, which suggests any pressures in this region that are flowing along a margin of resistance are being kind of like squeezed through. Like if there's pressures of currents flowing into resistance, and then like they're gonna essentially go faster along a final boundary where they can then kind of cut through at times. So there's that, and then me relating that margin back to the place where the vortex weapon punctured the mantle puncture hole, which wow, this dude's fucking insane. Well, you gotta admit, no, have you ever even heard someone mention this thing? This pile of poop. Why is it shaped like poop? Or ice cream, if you prefer. I don't know. A swirl. Why? No one cares? Oh, why is it mirrored right here? Because undercurrents. Also, earthquakes that are happening in Afghanistan are along this thing's mirrored larger thing, where this is an ammonite, because ammonites are products of currents. And in one of its chambers is another ammonite that's then in the chamber of a smaller ammonite. This one's like within a larger ammonite still. That's not this one. So there's fractal things going on, but this thing is like an epicenter of currents where along this margin, I wonder if that's like Vishnu. This thing came to mind with the concept of Vishnu pretending to be Jalandhar. This over here, Jalandhar, pardon me if that doesn't make any sense, but where it's like mirrored here by Vishnu maybe. It does kind of point towards Kelly Gandaki Valley. Okay. So there's that margin, there's that thing. And then another margin over here that's kind of like a low margin, high margin for flows relating to this point along margins outward. And this one's a very important one that goes across here and generally like straight, but at times bends around pressures. And generally goes across here and then kind of wobbles, but also goes through, and even seemingly goes through over here. And then here's some earthquakes. I looked at a bunch of 8.0s on here. I just was like, where are the 8.0s kind of thing? And found that the only ones that were in a certain region, I think, that were not the Pacific Plate, essentially. Well, I think it's got to be in here. This one. These four, dating back to the 1940 8.0 and above. The only ones that are not related to generally the Ring of Fire are these four, and I guess that one too. And I guess maybe these. More related to Ring of Fire, I guess, but I don't know if that's considered Ring of Fire area. Probably not. Anyway, these four are all followed paths that go down to that one, where it's got this like curvature back to there, and then that one along that margin. So it's not like here, it's along one of these boundaries specifically, and then another one right next to it pretty much, and then another one opposite down along this boundary. So this thing and its connections to these four at least, I mean, it's of note. Also, no 8.0s in this area, I guess down here, but in here, which here's that thing, and then here's a wall of high intensity where it's hard for like pressures from this area to flow over here, except for basically starting right about here, where then it can go. Even notice there's like this bend, like a pressure cross bending these, and then it gets past it and goes up that way, but it's getting bent by pressure kind of thing. So it looks like this area is like in the shade of this resistance, so it doesn't have the susceptibility. While the 8.8 happened was also Major Hurricane Iona by Hawaii, with a second one. I wonder if there's one right now. In the Pacific, of course. Are there any hurricanes? Marco. 20%, or Mario, 20% chance. Not really, unless that Mario one develops like a Mario Andretti or something. I don't know. Okay, let's keep going to Kamchakra focused. I really wanted to make it as much as possible about Kamchakra. So here's a good moment where I captured some data. So that's 4.5 plus magnitude earthquakes mapped at the Kamchakra region. Here is July 18th to the 25th. Notice they're like not past here, but there's a ridiculous amount here. And then this is the 25th to the 28th. So it's in that same area. And then here's the 8.8 at the edge of that. And then after the 8.8, all the way down to, again, another like stopping point and a starting point. That's pretty much where that was going on. Like the same starting point, maybe a little less up here and more like inward, and maybe that's even related. Like they're not back here. Hard margin. 100 aftershocks at practically every 5 minutes. This was literally like every 5 minutes. It's definitely slowing down at this point, but what did I say? Let's actually read this. It's worth noting they seem to approach boundary and stop. And then I was thinking, let's think of some reasons. One is that the propagating energies causing this all in the first place, undercurrents, are meeting more resistance, having opened up space and reducing its pressure as a result, and met a more rigid resistance where the process will calm, or that the resistance is causing pressures or causing building pressures, and it too will be broken in an abrupt. So I was thinking maybe like another 8.8 would happen around the resistance at the time, or 7.8 down here, something higher magnitude that never actually happened down there, at least not yet, but like when it would seem most reasonable to be like following in the sequence. Another reason could be it's reaching an energetically unfavorable location in the magnetic anomalies that direct undercurrents. So I pointed out this blue line, these fracture zones. I don't know if that's what they're called, if they're acknowledged in some cases. The area itself runs up to a margin of a fracture zone, suggestive a cross-current restricts free flow at this location. So basically, whatever flow is coming through this region and wrapping into here, because it's running into some other pressure from some other direction, there's current maybe, I don't know, I guess generally from the mantle puncture hole, that's like going this way, but up across into here. Anything that like gets into here would be flowing across here and working its way up here, and maybe also like cutting out here and up this way to interact with a downward flowing current that is essentially coming from the North Pole region, or possibly North America. I'm not completely certain. It seems it might be related to like flows through North America that are really low coming up this way, and generally through like against a downward flowing current, but maybe out further until like up here, but like somewhat making their way up here, and then maybe wrapping around through here, and like generally being forced in this way, or at this point exhausting this way, some of it flowing down in towards the Pacific and just like across towards Drake Passage, where I thought maybe another 8.8 would follow the 7.4 there in a like manner, where it was like opening an avenue of exhaust so that it would ultimately go through over here. But I mean, that would probably be recognized if that happened like systematically. So I was kind of hopeful, that's all. But they stopped at this margin, like at a fracture zone. And then I posted the video I did. This one just went past all the rest. I'm looking at it like pretty closely at that time. 4.7 just went past all the rest. I was thinking maybe it's like starting to get past. Here's where that one happened. I guess I paused for Afghanistan. Generally in line to Japan. Maybe here? I don't know. Then I went through this sequence. Just, let's see what I said. Most recent earthquakes around Kamchakra have largely been centered along the middle of the band. So these were all the most recent earthquakes. Except a few outliers, these ones over here. With the earthquakes since numbered in their sequence of occurrence after 1 to 14. Since the 6.1, which is X here. So this location at the tip is where one of the fracture zone resistances is that I interpret as an exhaust point, where essentially flows were running into resistance and exhausting this way. So this 6.1, interestingly, has not yet developed into other ones out here, but this is going to become a point of exhaust, which at this time I was not aware of, but it happened here, the 6.1. And so if you imagine there's a flow coming through, trying to make its way through, but it's running into resistance around here, and it literally, that's maybe even going outward, where it generally pushes it outward but into resistance. So then it, like, the flow down this way leads to a building of energy until something gives and an earthquake happens. And that, though, leads to a back pressure where 1 and 2 happen. But then the flow, I'm not even sure what my thought pattern was here. Pushes out the boundary, I guess. Like this boundary here. I don't know. Maybe it went this way and like feels pressure over here and feels pressure back, so it goes over this direction but manages to get up to like a next fracture zone type boundary, and then it goes back 5, 6, 7, 8, like a car accident. Like, cars are flowing, and then the front car stops, and then this car hits it, boom, and then behind it, boom, 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 and then that pushes the whole line forward, boom, 9, pushes forward, boom, 10, pushes forward, 11, maybe some portion like goes off sideways, 12 runs into resistance sideways, but it's still going forward, 13, and then again, like a car in the back hits the line that's building up here. Congestion. This is a region of undercurrent congestion, where other places are more free flow. So it's not really collisions happening. Okay. I guess at the time I was thinking that it flows past some kind of boundary here and gets into this region. And once it's like past where the earthquakes begin, some reason past where the earthquakes begin, down to where the earthquakes end, seems to be like a region where the energy is just kind of trapped. and not able to easily flow away from. And so it was like running forward into there to a point where it actually went back, like the energy reflection back from a far resistance point reflects energy back into the forward flowing energy where they essentially culminate together over here. And then back there, or wherever one was. Where's one? One, I think. 1, 2. Yeah. 3, 4. Pretty much just kind of filling the region with pressures and reflecting around in ways that seem like reflections, I guess. Okay, let's move on past this one. Some other flows that generally seem worth looking at. I don't know if I even necessarily would say this is true. It does seem like it's probably doing something like that, although I don't know if it's going back around. Maybe. It's probably going that way too, but I don't know why it would have that interaction. Maybe current's going this way, interacting with currents going this way, where they're generally merging into the same direction. The North Pole is very complex and hard to like reason out direction flows, and whether there's like more going on. Okay, here we go. They're doing that line towards Japan thing. Okay, that's the end of this. Like this. I was thinking it would shift to Japan potentially. Like it's this. So I looked back to 1980 on this website. seismicexplorer.concord.org, and I searched for 7.8 and greater and just kind of looked at the sequences, and the ones over here where Kamchakra, the one that we just experienced, is 9. The ones over here with relation to Japan went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Which gave me the impression maybe it would go like 10 somewhere. Maybe further even. Not Japan, but like further in this sense. In the way this went 1, 2, 3, 4. There is almost like phi ratio growths. I don't know about these ones, but no aftershocks. I don't know if this is all the data of Kamchakra. I get the impression they just don't report the smaller earthquakes, which seems kind of like but it's happening. One, 2, 3, 4. So it's kind of going counterclockwise, and this is back in time, 1980 to present, and then 5, 6, where there seems to be a connection between these points for reasons that won't get into. Like, that's actually unrelated to the earthquakes too, which is why I see it as a connection. I don't just draw it like, yeah. Whereas over here, maybe is more like that. But that was just the next ones. Like, okay, that's odd if it makes a cross. I thought maybe it'd do like patterns like that. So 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So it's still going counterclockwise generally. 14, 15. And then from there it actually goes 15, 16, 17. So they move like in here. And then they go over here. 18, where'd 19 go? 18, 19. So this is something that I feel is happening, is flow is going generally down this way, and then it's running into resistance here and flowing along this way, and going in here where it's running into resistance out here, so it's wrapping generally along this margin. Although probably getting out as well if it can, but running along this margin and going up where it can essentially eddy here or even up further and interact with Japan region. But when it does that, it essentially has a back pressure behind it that shoves on the current that's this way to go along this way. So 18, 19, so back to 16, 17, 15. So they're like building up pressure here and then shove it across kind of thing. And then 20, 21, back to the counterclockwise. 22 down there. 23 back up that way. 24 back up that way. Where's 25? Oh, over here. So again, flow back that way. But also possibly like flowing up this way in a way where it's building resistance. So then 26, 27 up here, and these are again part of that sequence that we were just looking at that went to Kamchakra, that maybe goes over here somewhere. Oops. 28, 29, and then 30, 31. So it's kind of like interacting along this region a lot. And then 32, so it's gone up that way. 33, and 34 over there. And then we get to the Tohoku quake. Fukushima, I think. Yeah. And then 36. 37, 38 over there. Sorry, not to just skip by that, but 39, 40, 41, 42. So this one didn't really follow the counterclockwise tendency with like an off loop kind of thing. Oh, makes me think of a frickin' shellogram. Um, 44, 45, 46, 43. 47, 48, 49, 50. Okay, let's get by this. And then we get up to Kamchakra. And then I added one that I forgot. Okay. And then on July 31st. It's gonna take me a while to even get the present. 6.2 last night. One of the largest since the 8.8. Pushing some boundaries eastward. I was, again, notice it's along that margin. I think it was at the location of the other one. I don't know. Seems a lot of last night's quakes were along the outer perimeter of the region full of quakes. So, out here, not so much in yesterday. A 4.1 generally in over there. Okay, I was just thinking about flow to Japan in these posts. Earthquake oddly up here that I then noted was in this path along basically this margin here that then points to over here that goes back to where a sand point generally is, and then back towards Kamchakra. If we like envision pressure here flow up, that's bending two directions where it goes up and left and up and right in this general area. While interacting with right and down, and maybe even down flows, I'm not sure. California, there's something going on there at that point. This is worth noting, it's along the Murray fracture zone that points right at it. Boop. Like, we think a lot about the, like, San Andreas fault. But what about the Mendocino fracture zone, Murray fracture zone? These are tied to earthquakes in ways. And then a bunch of volcanoes were erupting at Kamchakra that probably still are. Some more Japanese earthquakes. Okay, on that thread. Quakes are slowing. So I thought I'd look into historical earthquakes. And then I saw this sword that I thought was fun. Sword. I don't know what I'm gonna find here. Oh, this is this thread we already looked at. Okay, cool. Okay, here's a good one. On August 3rd, the previous 24 hours had earthquakes, generally along this path, and then against like this resistance and another like secondary resistance, and then over in like this nook. Almost looking like a Asian symbol. Japanese or something. And then there it is, just generally in a line that even points at that. And then with a margin of resistance at this point. I promise this will help us think about today's earthquake. Just all the better. We're gonna get there. I know I kinda barely introduced it and went back in time. I hope that makes sense. And people are like, yeah, no, that makes sense though. Okay, so then there was one generally pushing those boundaries we were just looking at. That was a 6.2. I thought that was pretty significant at the time. Maybe suggesting the resistance is being overwhelmed as pressure builds up further south after pushing its way through. So essentially that 8.8 really helps allow pressures through. Here's me kind of seeing that eddy thing going on. Those ones, okay. I'm not too concerned. Let's get back to Kamchakra. Here, it didn't really. Okay, still. Okay, this was. Let's just gander at that. Look at that. Oh, okay, maybe not quite at it. Okay, I know this thread has Kamchakra. Okay, here we go. Also today, here we go. Of all the earthquakes at Kamchatka in the last month, this one is the furthest into the Pacific that just occurred today as an M5.0. A clear outlier. This one here. It is matched by the most recent quake today, sort of in its direction. So, like, if flow is going through here, running into resistance, it's then bending off in a preferential way. Or it tries to go either way, but bends away from the continent, I guess. Where in the last 30 days, it was an outlier pretty substantially in terms of away from the subduction zone or whatever, plate tectonics, fault zone, outlier here, more recent one. Okay, here's the outlier out here, here's the 8.8, here's the 7.4, here's today's 7.4, outlier here. That ends up becoming my interpretation that there's a exhaust going this way, and then one here though. That is where this is going on here. And then some flows across from the mantle puncture hole region here that generally go across, but just at like a boundary here to Hawaii. So when there's like there's relevance to the like pointedness of Hawaii, where it's pointing now relates to the mantle puncture hole. But general region of like stuff that's getting from over here into the Pacific and not deflecting up and generally into the Arctic where counter pressures are going into it. Is cutting through here and making its way over that way. And then in the last year, it was still an outlier. And then at some point the last 50 years or something, the last large amount of time. And then I looked around the 1955 to 1949 4 magnitude, and there was another 9.0 in this area at that time, and nothing was out that far, so it was it's an outlier, and it grabbed my attention as a result. And I noticed there's some Hess rise earthquakes out here that were 2024 for that one, and I don't know about the other one. That are kind of where that points. And I was thinking maybe it was exhausting now. Literally outflows. I know I'm probably also exhausting, but you're exhausting, dude. but not that kind of exhausting. Oh, also that kind. That's really what's going on here. That kind is exhausting. This shit needs out. Blah 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 like a tongue. Blah blah blah. And then it like cuts across to the boundaries. So these fracture zones are resistance points. It's kind of like a check. Do you have enough pressure to get through this cross current? If yes, pass. If no, flow along and become part of it. And some of the flows go along the Mendocino fracture zone and the Murray fracture zone, etc. And seem to go in part to Yellowstone. And here's the last 24 hours at that point, where it's like a clear resistance and flow, bending off. And then some earthquakes over here I was noting at the time in this Hawaiian Ammonite region. I know it might seem crazy. Much too narrow or resistance ahead. So it gave me the impression this earthquake happened as the most recent one. So I thought, well, maybe even though it's like managing to outflow, it's not like over here is just empty and like infinite space to outflow to. It has its own pressure, and as it flows in, it then can only flow in so much, which then leads the current that's trying to exhaust that way to go forward some more, and it leads to an earthquake over here. And then the volcanoes. I guess this, I thought that would be crazy. That whatever this is became a volcanic eruptive region. But this was doing the similar thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These 6 were all volcanically erupting in that sequence. 1, 2, 3, where it like ping ponged, and then it does the same ping pong thing, like it moves to the side. 4, and then ping pongs. So I thought maybe it would ping pong a bit more, where it did 7. I think maybe 7 might have actually been possibly happening. The potential, yeah, this one is potential, and then this was me thinking, well, maybe 8, and then maybe over here for like 9, where it's like ping pongs over there. I don't know if it like continued the process. Continued a pattern. Okay, earthquake over here, which was right here along the Mendocino fracture zone where it bends upward. So again, kind of a resistant region where some congestion can happen. Like if you're driving down the road and then there's a bend, and some people go straight and they cut through, freaking ramp through like a riding bikes. I don't know, maybe depends on the material. Okay, let's find some more Kamchakra details. Here's another like sequential thing. Afghanistan, Kamchatka. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then Kamchatka, and then 9, and then 10. Like it's maybe filling pressure over here and goes up this way, and it runs into resistance up this way, where then it goes down this way, 11, and then back to Kamchakra, and then down this way. Generally over there, 13, back to Kamchakra. Like, it seems super central to everything else during that process. Okay, let's see what else we got. Starting a new thread on the 8th of August. I noticed that yellow is the last week, where white is the last month. Orange is the last day, and red is the last hour. So I noticed today's earthquakes, let's just kind of look back. Starting a new thread. Continuing from there with today's earthquakes. And by today's earthquakes, I mean the last 30 days. I noticed a really hard boundary in the north, where quakes are restricted, as well as another less obvious intermediary boundary here. In the last week, there is a wide band of quakes surrounded by narrow bands. Wide band, and then narrow band, with gaps, because in the last week is yellow, where white is the last month. So it's more, it actually moved forward a little bit, where these were not happening, although there's some back there. Importantly, the 8.8 occurred within the region of the wide band, as if pressures were trying to get through, and resistance held until a major quake culminated. The 7.4 occurred at the region just north of this band, as if it allowed pressure into the next zone. Guess we'll see if there's like aftershocks and things like a similar sequence. We have still not seen a follow up there. Okay, let's get through this, because I do want to kind of connect this all back. Connect it all back to this kind of thing, but now, what was happening, and when this was happening, today's 7.4. So we got that band, we got that stuff, and then this is the last month. 5.7 minimum, so I went to a higher threshold, and there's still this like band that maybe doesn't have the most obvious exhaust there in this data, which kind of makes sense if like the exhaust is due to resistance. Higher energies would maybe get through more readily, but still show themselves along a band. So then from that band, I ended up doing this, making this GIF, and putting the magnetic anomalies over here is pretty bad on the right. You can tell it's pretty off. Here's this loop is here, but it's generally correct where we're aiming. Like there's this this. Pretty good. That dropped that freaking thing right there. Huh. Kind of meandering at it. Okay. Another 6.0 on the 9th at that outlier location. Here's the one on the 9th, and then there's the outlier path to the main outlier. And then another one still. And notice it's taking a shape. Which is kind of pointing over there, I thought. I don't know. It's really got that shape. There we go. This can't be normal, where it's got a chakra. Kamchakra. And then, here we go. This is one of the better ones. The region just has this kind of thing. This might be whatever video I made on August 12th or 13th, 10th, 11th. I don't know. I probably made one then, because I'm pretty sure I talked about this, but essentially, like, currents colliding and vibrating, where, like, one of them is generally coming through here, but it's vibrating now. And then makes its way up to the chakra, like this teal one. Where some of it doesn't make its way up to the chakra and goes down and up and down, but some of it doesn't go forward, it goes away this way but into resistance and just deflects around and goes through this way generally. And certainly you can debate how many of these paths are real, but, like, there is a tendency in the data to be along paths, like here. Here. But then if we just follow, like, an outer margin, some of it goes up, which is that teal path that then goes back down and vibrates through here. I guess we could also envision it to go more just across, like this whole way across, as like a flatter, like, outer margin path. And so on, but where there's current coming in this way, that's generally going, like, around to the inside of the inlet current. But this one's running into it, making it do things. Also having kind of like straight line things going on. I know you can say, well, this is all in your imagination kind of stuff. But those are features of a chakra. And then past 24 hours on the 13th, strange pattern. It wasn't really doing that kind of thing. It was kind of getting caught at the resistance and like forming an eddy maybe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's all over here. Pressure first attempted to exhaust at resistance margin. And then like over here. And then it went this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then when it couldn't go this way, pressure over here was high. It just went this way, 6, 7, 8. And then it reached another resistance margin where it couldn't go this way either. And maybe it could have had one back here. But for whatever reason, it then managed to create a situation where it could break through the resistance. So they kind of passed through it. I don't know what this is. Okay, there's that 6.0. Just some more other stuff. The 11th. Did I already go through this one? No. I don't think so. No. Different post that I'm like simultaneously making, I guess. I don't know. Here's that margin. I was thinking it's exhausting as well down through here, leading to more earthquakes over here. Through this region where it kind of, I don't know, on the top of my head there. Through here as well. Okay. Not the best thread there. This is only one post here on the 16th. So they seem to pass the resistance. And they got down there, but okay, 15th, another outlier here. Today, previous outlier. Although this one's more of an outlier because it's like in the region. This one though, I think I was thinking one might happen there. Like there. Oh, these are not Kamchakra focused enough. Boundary band over there, okay. Pardon me, guys. Definitely things of interest that I've already talked about, so. I could have sworn there was more Kamchakra in this thread, I guess not. Okay, some Yellowstone stuff that just relates because the Mendocino fracture zone is right here. So pressures from Kamchatka that flowed along the Mendocino fracture zone, anything that like couldn't get past it and just flowed along it. some of the pressures make their way over to Yellowstone region. I don't think it's like a very large amount that's making it there, though. Other earthquakes related. That's supposed to be a. Oh. There's some there. I don't want to go through it, though. Some other Mendocino fracture zone stuff. Here's that outlier. Exhaust path. I don't know why we didn't see this one. Maybe we did. Yeah, we did. So some other paths involved. Okay, that exhaust. Okay, another outlier there on this day, the 25th. So we're getting closer to present. And the quakes have slowed down recently. It's still quite the outlier. That one is 6.1. I think that's that one. Yeah. Which was at the exhaust point, and it was a larger one than the previous ones. So it gave me the impression that it kind of like allowed for exhaust to happen by being like over here. Anything that's flowing this way and getting like running into a closed door, they bust open the door, boom, and it flows in with a higher free flow, so it just like quiets the zone so it flows through. Essentially, like, currents are trying to figure out some stable interaction, but other currents and pressures are pushing them to the same regions, where it's essentially, that's where it's just gonna happen for a time until like that region stabilizes into a new equilibrium, and maybe somewhere else becomes more susceptible to higher turbulent flows going to there. But right now it seems to be focusing here for some reason. Okay, then the 7 point whatever Drake passage happened. And then, 18 earthquakes in the last 24 hours at that point. So on the... Oh, crap, where... Super exciting that I predicted a major decrease in earthquakes after the 6.1 outlier. Almost like I know what I'm talking about. Do I? I don't know. We'll see. So, like, it's exhausting into the Pacific. Quiet emerging at Kamchakra. As Kamchakra quiets, this region is showing some signs that something is going on. Having, like, a pathway there. 18 in the last 24 hours. I thought pressure building. One day, 14 earthquakes. On the 27th. And then here, I don't know if there we go. You can literally see it. Just follow, connected dots. And then like this can bend in here. Can be just go like that. But it can also go over here. And then over here we see like one going across this way. And it crosses it and goes that way. So there's two interacting currents, like so. And it probably does have an element cutting across here that even maybe is like related to that. Where some portion of the green is probably interacting with the red to go both this way. But where it's effectively creating like a wobble and an interaction of two currents. And then there's the 8.8 where it was, where this stuff's going on in this weird way around it, where there was this path before, and now it's kind of doing like one of these at that point, where it's bending off into this area. And then 31 on the 28th, so it seemed like it was starting back up again. Like the pressure is filling northern Pacific now. And now the flow is not able to exhaust as easily and is interacting with an opposing current more again. So it's just like not able to get out again, is what I was thinking. And then, what was that? That was the 28th, 29th of August. We had some over here where it seemed maybe the exhaust was just going back to Japan. Generally, like flowing this way, but running into congestion. So it just off, like gassing offshoot over here where along this path, earthquakes. Maybe, I was thinking, also just generally along here, but that's like less direct compared to a flow along this like deep, low intensity that points at it, even like both channels, maybe. And I was thinking maybe it's shifting to Japan, but did not, so good. Earthquake there, earthquake over here, at that region. I kind of, like there's a direct line at it there, and there's some reason, like the way this is pointy, like through the point. And then kind of doing a trident thing from some focal point, like Hawaii was Angel and the Trident. Angel and the Trident. I don't know, maybe there's a freaking system there. And then where is this? In the last year, 6.8 plus earthquakes, which I randomly first chosen value to look at. All earthquakes were equatorial. And by equatorial, I mean in these blue lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I kind of cheated over here just because it was Atlantic and like snagged it. 7. All of them are generally equatorial. And then 8, 9, southern. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So the first 7 were equatorial, and the last 9, where polar kind of seems of interest. Non-random. I don't know what exactly to make of it. Starting January 1st this year specifically, so not the last year. And then cluster over here, Mendocino fracture zone, which points over towards Yellowstone along that margin here. Here's the swarm. This Mendocino fracture zone is definitely worth noting, as again, here's this thing, and I think we even got a even more outlier than arrow notched. I said like it was gonna shoot an arrow. Question mark? I don't know. It doesn't really look like like it's flexed, like a flex bow. I want this shit's real though. How we doing? Hour and a 36. I'm almost to the end of my images. Stuff going on. Okay, before I get distracted trying to figure out what the hell I was talking about there. Okay. Let's get to more Kamchakra. Okay, these are Kamchakra related enough. Cluster on the first, over here. Bunch of them that are happening that are really along this straight path. Right there, and then along over here, along that straight path in that area where those meet, which following that back that way I was just thinking it maybe actually points outside of this, which I mean, it certainly relates to the area, as does Sand Point, which was like here, I think. I can't remember. It was somewhere where, or maybe here, somewhere where this going up like and bending was like maybe here. Some other earthquakes around. Okay. Curious patterns. This I'm looking at, it looks almost like a... Here's that boundary. Like something's going on over here that's cutting through and interacting in some way. And I drew a little circle type thing. Like maybe it's like going down a drain, going this way. I don't know if that made sense, pardon me. Okay. This one, I didn't mention it. Where made me think of... Where is it? Yeah, there it goes. This, it kind of made me think of the dead man walking. Legs, maybe a hand, a cane. I don't know exactly what to. But like legs, some kind of top of the storm, like a tornado shape. I mean, I don't see. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. I just thought it kind of reminded me of Dead Man Walking, some like tornado shape. Nickname for this tornado, but like it's a known thing. That's not just this photograph. Not just this storm. That's like a sign of a fucking scary ass tornado. Not a good tornado when it's dead man walking appearance. Is not a good tornado. It's not just a freaking. It's not just like other tornadoes. It's an F5. It's gonna fuck some shit up real bad. Texas's most recent F5, and it was in 1997. So, I mean, that's not that common. It's just not that common. I don't know how frequent F5s occur overall. But to see it in a pattern of Kamchakra earthquakes, probably not the best sign, honestly. Probably not the best sign. Bunch of earthquakes that happened on the 6th. I guess I'm kind of skipping over details I haven't even talked about yet. No, I kind of caught up with stuff I haven't talked about yet. That I'm just kind of skipping. Oh, crap. Let's go back here. Not the same, looking more like a turbulent zone than fluid paths interacting smoothly as previously. Almost like an eddy, and by smoothly I mean those like wobbles and so on. And the channel down the middle. Almost like an eddy zone exists. Like an eddy. And then earthquakes here and here in North America that are relating to the Mendocino and I think Pioneer fracture zone, I think. Not sure. That are generally pointing into North America and pointing at that one and at that one, although they have kind of like outer margins further out. And then other quakes in Afghanistan and there's the ammonite I was mentioning earlier, generally here. This one. The small one here, big one here. Small one there. Small, big. Bunch of earthquakes on its margin. And then mantle puncture hole, there's a bunch of earthquakes on its margin, and then up here is this entry point for all these flows that actually bend here a lot and go that way and this way against resistance, but still have a general entry directly above it. And then some other earthquakes. And Nikolsky, what was I saying there? Alaska quakes is extending into the Pacific almost as if an exhaust like Kamchakra. So I was thinking maybe it was going to extend into the Pacific. I don't know. If it did, they actually moved it. They made them all, this one too. Or one of them's gone, I don't know. Okay, back to Kamchatka. The area quieted while the earthquakes took a more fluid shape of two interacting currents, but this looks like congestion is building and currents are interacting more chaotically. 7.7 or 4? Hey, I kinda noted something of interest, maybe? I don't know. 5.2 back here. Like, generally going back towards that way. I was thinking it's like eddies are happening, probably. Dead man walking thing. Oh. I guess I'm just skipping over this again. This one said of zero depth. It didn't say 0.0. I'm like, at Guayaquil? What the fuck is this? I wonder if that on the 5th. It's gotta be there still. 11.6. Okay. Or is that it? That's gotta be it. That's it. This one says 18. Missouri. I swear this still relates to Kamchatka sooner or later. Then I noted this kind of horn type shape where currents are flowing along an outer margin and an outer margin kind of idea. Similarly here, where they're along fracture zones that continue across towards Kamchatka. Go this way, and that one. Along that path, all out there. Then another quake happened there that kind of supported that notion. Another quake there, there. All showing signs of relationships to fracture zones. And I'm not sure what this is about. I think I was just interpreting directions of flows here, where this was going this way. And out that way based on this. I'm not sure why. Maybe based on here being on this side. But being more so these ones that are flowing into margin over there, in here, or out here maybe, actually. In here, in through across that way to here, which is just more so interacting with that one probably, which is probably more so going around, like following a like ocean currents and then going up this way and eddying here kind of thing. Maybe even going generally like that, up and down. Then I noticed over here, it looks like the Mendocino fracture zone maybe continued some path over here. And there's kind of similar things here, that's of note. But here I thought it almost looks like it got shifted. I don't know, so I started looking around and like that, like it just abruptly shifted, like along a fracture zone kind of thing. And like along the Rencha. And there's some interesting things going on with over here, and maybe there's some shifting or something awry that's not fully appreciated without considering that kind of thing. I mean, certainly they've considered generally, like, where is this from? Africa, which generally was adjacent, so I'm not sure why they'd say more Africa than North America, since they were together. I guess they separated and came back together. I don't know. Oh yeah, the Riak Ocean. When did that exist? Supposedly. Okay. When did it close? So here's what would become Florida. Here's, I think, Mexico. Suture zone is generally here. The Laurentian margin. Bahama fracture zone, as they call it, which apparently goes, like, they draw it. I'm not sure if I share it. So here's how those blocks apparently moved. It's such an eddy. Like, they were straight like this, and then they took the shape of a circle. This one was over there already, so it's not even one of the ones that took the shape of the circle. It was these ones. And then the shortest block is of interest, where it seems to have been essentially very near the epicenter, the focal point of the Pacific's expansion, and shoved along the margin to a bit over here in some strange way that is probably not. It needs to account for expanding Earth better than I'm doing, and then plate tectonics did. Included this just to kind of get some details added in here. Let's get back to Kamchakra. This one over here. Kamchakra. Sandpoint. Alright. Yeah, I think maybe that's Sandpoint or that's Sandpoint. One of them. And then the other earthquakes up there. And then other general paths that maybe connect to over here. Going along this boundary and then along there. Through to over there. Where this quake is. And just some thoughts here. Can see it kind of going up the horn. Oh man. And then wrapping around, kind of like in Indonesia, the this way thing going on. That one I noticed was seemingly along this path, which that just another fracture zone, and then type of feature over here, not over here, but and then this path also along this way, pointing over here very directly, and also probably related up here for that earthquake, so it seemed of interest. Some stuff. Okay, now this is on September 8th. It seems the last 7 days of earthquakes at Kamchakra still have some semblance of interacting currents. So, like, one just kind of cutting through and going out. And then another deflecting off of that one inside of it. And then into a point where it just gets forced through. Probably like along each other and then kind of through each other at a point where it's able to just build up enough pressure to cut through, but then into a general flow where it's just pushed back into this area to start to create some kind of eddy. Prior exhaust, new exhaust. I was thinking it's maybe like trying to straighten out along the path, so it's maybe gonna shift, but some reason like they're starting here and ending, so they're interacting. Some reason these two directions just keep interacting. And then on the 11th, I really then they just concentrated. I was like, this is weird. All these patterns. And then they just kind of like build up in this location. And then the 7.4, so let's check out finally what's been going on over here. Do we have any new sand point? Interesting. Which happened first, Sand Point, and then Kamchakra. 7.4 at Sand Point, 7.4 at Kamchakra, and then 8.8 at Kamchakra. So it kind of opened the door for flows to get in. That seems to still be going on over here, where it's just like it's holding, it's flowing in into this region. That's what I initially interpreted was flow is generally going from down here across here and then abruptly up all the way up here into this region, where some of it is deflecting off of resistance, and it did that. And here's Sandpoint, where this 7.0 was like here, right here. 7.4 was right there, where this is pointing at it. So like essentially opening a doorway for flows over here to just get into this area, but where they're not getting in, like they're just flowing. Oh, that one is the last song. Better switch back. Okay. And then I drew it like this. I was like, this is weird. It's the last 7 days. So maybe let's do that. See what we see now. The last 24 hours, we got a cluster in there where there were no other in the last week. And then that one, and that one are all kind of like away from the last week's. This one is along that exhaust path. These look like current flowing northward, bending away and back, but like in really with the cluster there where it seemed like they were just colliding with like high frequency, but leading to the current flowing this way to go over and wrap in and back at itself, basically. Where a bunch of earthquakes were just happening there, while another current was generally flowing in and maybe exhausting, so that there weren't really interactions over here much. So its interaction was only in that region, and showed signs with the other current here. I don't know. But, eddying over here would maybe lead current flowing this way to go inward soon and out, but maybe out it just flows. Where in it also has to go, and because it's trying to flow through ultimately. But this counter current is holding it up, so it like moved in before this magnetic anomaly, where it's kind of like flowing around it, but then it ran into it maybe. In a manner where the magnetic anomaly played a role in instigating it too, by the colliding currents. Maybe here, across this way, and then out into here and along the margin. That's like, current goes this way and in here as well as out. So when it goes in, this current can join it and go in too. So it's like doing that in part. Maybe. I'm not sure why I would like preferentially eddy there. Maybe it's just not a good spot for more pressure to go. Like this, whatever this is flowing is more able to. But by adding a second one, it adds turbulence. So we then see the second currents like flow path interactions more than the first. And it's not able to freely flow in because it's still running into pressures, even though there's a low intensity through path. So it eddies here still. Certainly there's probably other details to better see the full spectrum of what's going on in the underbellies of the earth. It really seems like it's struggling to exhaust anymore. It was exhausting back on the 25th and so on. And now it's just kind of filling back pressures. What did I circle here? Concentrate is where they're concentrated. Along this margin. But then, like, if current bends in here and goes in from this side and eddies back around where it runs along this margin and along this margin, it goes back to where it came in through here, while this one is bending through and around, so like that area would become a high collision spot, I guess. Countered by maybe it's just like filling pressure where north currents are like taking over this region in that case where it's eddying, and southern currents that were flowing through just shortcut through over here instead. But it's not like that easy, and it ends up leading to another 7.4 over here, which maybe opened an outlet because it's really been quiet there since. I guess we'll see. Alright guys, sorry for the very little talk on today's earthquake, but hopefully the collective discussion of it all is worth the little today's earthquake details. Till next time.